BOSS Shot Shells has released a new steel hunting load that they're calling Unleaded, and I think it's time to put it to the test. George here with the new Hunter's Guide, and today I want to test BOSS's new steel hunting ammo, Unleaded. Now, I came by a box of this as a paying program member, and as I understand it, they sent out a box to all program members. So I got it as a result of a purchase that I made, and the other ammo I'm going to test against it today I bought with my own money, though BOSS has given me ammo in the past. Now, what is this ammunition for? Well, BOSS is marketing it to hunt doves, quail, and other small game, and I've seen other places where they're mentioning it's designed to be 30 yards and under. Now, I want to test these today against BOSS's new steel target ammo because the specs on them are pretty similar. Speaking of specs, let's look at those now. You can see both the unleaded and the steel target ammo are number 7s. Now, they both come in number 8s also, but we're going to test the 7s today. The unleaded 1,350 feet per second versus the target at 1,235. So you got a little bit of a velocity increase. Both 1 ounce payload, same number of pellets, and a slight increase in recoil with the unleaded. So the only real difference that we see here is a velocity increase. Now, there could be other changes. You could have different wad, powder, etc. But in terms of the main numbers, that's what we've got. Now, one of the main reasons I want to test it against the steel target ammo, aside from the very similar specs, is I want to see if the steel target ammo is just as effective in the field because it's much cheaper. If you look at the cost analysis, both by the box and by the case, the target ammo comes in significantly cheaper by the shell. So in paying more for the unleaded ammunition, do you actually get an increase in performance? So to test this ammo, we're going to do 20 yards, 30 yards, and 40-yard pattern tests with both of them. I'm going to use a modified choke tube because that's what I would most typically use for hunting doves and other small game, and that's going to be a Trulock Precision Hunter modified choke tube, which is rated for steel. And then we're going to ballistics gel test them to see what kind of a difference does that velocity make. Okay, let's head down to the range and get this test started. I am down at the range, set up at 20 yards. I've got the modified choke tube loaded up, and we're going to take our first shot with the BOSS Unleaded number 7s. Now we've got the BOSS Target Steel number 7s. Okay, we'll back it up to 30 yards and repeat. We are now back to 30 yards and we'll take the first shot with the unleaded. Now we've got the target load. All right, let's push it back to 40. We are now back at 40 yards and we've got our unleaded. Now we've got our target. In case you're wondering, no, neither one of these loads seem to have enough power in order to lock the bolt back on this gun, but that's been a recurring theme with pretty much any light ammo that I've been shooting. If you have any ideas on how to fix that, I am all ears. Let me know in the comments. But let's go ahead and take a look at these targets. I have all of these targets laid out here, and I've drawn a 30-inch-ish circle over the densest part of the core pattern. This is not an exact science, but the results are pretty interesting. Let's take a look. The unleaded at 20 yards, very tight pattern, well inside of the circle. Probably more like a 20-inch pattern, somewhere around there. Then we have the target load. Very tight pattern, very similar in size, smaller. Probably again, closer to 20 inches. Then at the range it was meant to be used, the unleaded, 30 yards. Very good pattern. Fills it out pretty nicely at this range. The target load at 30 yards, also a very good pattern. And now it fills the circle nicely. At 40 yards, the unleaded, beyond its maximum intended range. Very nice pattern indeed. Fills that circle well. And then the target load at 40 yards. Also a nice even pattern here and fills out its target. So what I'm gonna do here, guys, is I'm gonna count the pellets in these circles. I'm gonna try to compensate for the size of the circle. Obviously, if I drew it a little bit too big, I'll try to get inside. If I drew it too small, then I will expand the counting just a little bit. Try to make it as fair as possible. But now let's get on to the ballistics gel test. I have the ballistics gel set up at 30 yards. Now, normally we test everything at 40 yards. However, this ammo is specifically listed as a 30-yard and under load, and it is number 7. So we're gonna go ahead and do it at 30 today. We've got the unleaded at 30. Now flip the block of gel around and we'll shoot it at the other side with the target. The ballistics gel's now flipped around and we've got the target ammo. Okay, let's go take a look. I have this block of ballistics gel laid out here and the results are actually pretty uniform and pretty easy to read. Let's go ahead and take a look. From left to right, we have the unleaded, and that's somewhere around 2 to 2.5 inches. And from right to left, we've got the target, which is a little bit less. So what's the actual difference? I'm gonna go ahead and measure a good sample of these pellets, get the averages, put that data in a chart for you guys momentarily. Now, before we look at the data, let's talk briefly about the recoil. You saw on paper that there's a slight difference in recoil due to that extra velocity, but does it translate in the shoulder? Could I feel an increased recoil from the BOSS Unleaded? I did a little extra shooting off camera just to get a better sense of it, and my final analysis, yeah, maybe probably just a little bit. The unleaded has more recoil. However, if I wasn't looking for it, I'm not entirely sure I would have noticed it in the volume of shooting that I was doing. It's very slight. Now, if you're thinking about using the unleaded to do sporting clays and you shot a 100 clay target course, you would probably notice the difference between the two at the end. But I think in terms of the regular hunting scenario, both of them shoot very soft and the unleaded is very low recoil. You're probably not going to tell much of a difference with just a couple of shots. Now let's jump in and look at the data for this test. First up, at 20 yards, you can see the unleaded 405 pellets. That is a lot of pellets. It was also a very small pattern. Then you look at the BOSS target, 408 pellets. So the BOSS target comes out ahead, 1% more pattern in the circle at 20 yards. Now at 30 yards, that story begins to change a little bit. The unleaded, 389 pellets versus 351 pellets with the target ammo. So the unleaded has 11% more pellets in the circle at the 30-yard line, which is a lot of pellets. So if you're hunting doves, quail, or anything else at 30 yards, this is probably too much choke tube. You probably want to go with an improved cylinder or cylinder bore if you're going to be hunting at close range. Now, if we look at the 40-yard mark, we see that the unleaded has 253 pellets versus 230 pellets with the target ammo. So 10% more pellets at the 40-yard line. So even though the specs are identical, other than velocity, we are seeing more pattern, tighter pattern with the unleaded compared to the target ammo, which is nice to see for that extra cost. Now, in terms of what you're hunting at 40 yards, I think 253 pellets is more than enough for doves or any other small game that you might be going after. Again, you may want to use a more open choke tube in order to get that pattern to open up faster. But if you want it to be that tight, that's how tight this modified choke tube got it anyway. And you might be able to get it tighter, maybe with improved modified or full or something else to that degree. Always make sure your choke tube, though, is rated for steel shot. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the ballistics gel data. We see here that the unleaded 2.43 inches of penetration at 30 yards. Normally we're talking at 40, but we did 30 for this test. Versus the target load, 2.2 inches of ballistics gel penetration. So the unleaded comes out ahead in the gel by 10% over the steel target load. So what's the final analysis on this ammunition? Well, I like the unleaded. I like how you get more pattern potential. I like how you get more ballistics gel penetration. I think it is a nice load for what it's designed for. I don't think it's going to be a good load for hunting bigger game. I don't think that I would use it for hunting ducks because even at 30 yards, I'm not getting the 3 inches of ballistics gel penetration that I want to see. But for smaller game, this feels good. Now, realistically, what would I use in the field for hunting doves, quail, or other game? I would probably go ahead and use the target ammo for dove hunting because I may take a lot of shots and the lower cost is very appealing. But if I'm doing anything bigger than a dove, if I'm going to go after quail or crows or any other larger birds, I think the unleaded is what I would use. I think I would pay the extra money to use that over the steel target loads. What would you do? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see more testing with the steel target ammo, you should check out this video right here. And if you want to see Boss's steel duck ammo, check out my steel reserve test here. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you and go get 'em in the woods.